welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's STEM Community Lunchtime Conversation session. My name is Jeremy Babender, and hosting with me today is Beth Nickel from Arizona Science Center. In the session, Energy You Tinker, Experiment, Design, and Collaborate, we'll be exploring ways to engage in hands-on STEM activities at home and encourage students to engage with each other.
We have a few guest speakers here with us to share the great work that they have been doing in this area. Our presenters today for this session are Mike McKelvey, Abigail Howell, and Olivia Hodges from Basha High School's Science is Fun. We also have with us Sherry Smith Dodson, the founder of Miss Science and Discover Science for Kids, and Danelle Hogan, the director of the STEM Mazing Project. Thank you all for being here with us today to share your expertise with the group. So these conversations were brought about in order to meet the needs of the community with these goals in mind. Take a second to look at these goals. We thank you again for participating in this important discussion. So our agenda for the session is as follows. During the first part of the conversation, our presenters will share how they are engaging students and families in hands-on STEM activities at home. Once the presentations have concluded, we will then have participants join moderated breakout rooms so smaller groups can talk more about the topics using the few guided questions. As we get closer to that point, we will drop a Google Doc in the chat where you can take notes. We will then all come back into one room and take a few minutes to have a couple breakout rooms share their top ideas and thoughts with the whole group.
Before we get started, we want to go over a few quick housekeeping items. First, throughout the presentations, please post all comments and questions in the chat box. It's really awesome to see the conversations that happen and interest during the presentations. We will monitor this to answer questions, address comments, and provide discussion opportunities. To start, again, please feel free to post a hello if you just joined in the chat to let everybody know you are here and what you are most looking forward to in today's discussion. 2, please remain muted during the conference call and unmute when you're in the breakout rooms. 3, please enable your video during the conference, especially during breakout rooms and discussions. If we run into bandwidth issues, we'll ask people to turn off their cameras. 4th, the presentation will be recorded and we'll make it available after the show. Now we'd like to welcome our first presenter. So it's going to be Mike McKelvey and Abigail Howard and Olivia Hodges from Basha High School Science is Fun. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Our mission in Science is Fun is to share the fun and excitement of scientific discovery with students in their classrooms and at STEM events statewide. The objective is to enhance student interest, student self-efficacy associated with science, and importantly, their perception of science and who can be a scientist through the use of diverse older student STEM role models. In a little while, Abby is going to be sharing our research into the impact that those role models are having on 4th grade students in their classroom. But we are meant to do hands-on live video presentations to reach students during this time of social distancing and to enhance their interest in science from triggered situational to maintain situational interest. And now, Olivia is going to share a little of the Science is Fun experience.
I have with me what looks like a ping pong ball, but it has a few more tricks up its sleeve. It has a battery, a light, and a speaker, along with these 2 metal slits on it. So how can I make my glow ball actually glow? Here I have with me a wire. Maybe that could work. I'll try and put each end of the wire on each of the metal strips. Let's see if that works. It does, but that's what we call completing the circuit. So my wire is allowing my battery to actually use as electric current and make my glow ball glow. But oops, what if I don't have my wire anymore? What can I use now? Well, I can use myself. I'll put my fingers in the same position as the wire. Let's see. My glow ball glows. And that's what we call electrical conduction. And do you think we can use more people in it? Of course we can. There's so many different ways that we can connect different people and different conductors of electricity to make my glow ball glow. But this isn't just about showing kids the connection that we can make a glow ball glow. It's about showing kids the connection that they can have with their community. If they're able to use all the resources their community has to offer, they can prosper and actually find a future in STEM. I know that from being in Science is Fun, I made a ton of connections, and I feel a lot more connected to my community through all the different STEM events and the different people I've interacted with. And even now, we're still connecting even during this pandemic through Zoom. But my favorite connection that I've made during Science is Fun and my time with Science is Fun was with the kids. They get so excited and they're so fascinated about what you have to say. And then if they want to start touching things and creating their own experiments. And then before I know it, I have a future scientist sitting in front of me. And I know Science is Fun has had a major impact on me. And there's also Abby, who has a ton more data collected on the impact of Science is Fun.
Thank you so much, Livia. All right, thank you so much. So my name is Abigail Howell. I am one of the research assistants looking into the impact of the Science is Fun program, which we are calling the Science of Science is Fun, assessing the impact of Flash mentoring for educational outreach. So really what we're interested in is looking at Science is Fun's impact on interest and self-efficacy in students. So to measure this, we have two assessment instruments. The first on the left-hand side is our Likert instrument. It's a series of 19 questions, 1 through 5 scale, asking students questions about their interest and self-efficacy related to STEM. And on the right, we have our assessment, which we call the DAST, the Draw a Scientist test, where students are invited to draw their perceptions of what a scientist looks like. And so both these assessments are administered before the Science is Fun show and after the Science is Fun show. From this data, we found that with our Likert scale, we found significant increase in all 3 of our categories, our 2 interest categories, including general interest in science activities, and interest specifically in learning about energy science topics, which is what Science is Fun focuses on during their presentation. We also saw a significant increase pre and post in student self-efficacy. And from our DAST, we saw that there was a significant decrease in stereotypical characteristics of science over time, which we measure with the DAST rubric. The most significant findings is that we had a 7% increase in female scientists drawn from the DAST, and we saw this was specific to female students, so we had more female students drawing female scientists. Next, please. And we also saw a significant increase in positive depictions of scientists overall. And our final result is that we looked at the difference in state science test scores between groups that had seen the Science is Fun show and groups that had not seen the Science is Fun show. And in the years 2016 and 2017, we saw a significant difference, an increase in standardized science state test scores for students that had seen the Science is Fun show, potentially pointing to the long-term impact of Science is Fun. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Love the interaction as part of it. Next, I want to introduce Sherry Smith-Dodson. I've actually known Sherry for a very long time, since we even started the SciTech Festival. She's a founder of Miss Science and Discover Science for Kids. So take it away, Sherry.
Hey, Jeremy. Okay, so high tech, low tech, no tech. I have spent a lot of time in classrooms, libraries, museums, and with the maker movement, it's really an exciting time. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that carries over to home engagement as well. So many choices, right? I've worked in, places where I've been in a booth and there's been all these makerspace products. And one of my favorite things was I was at FETC, Future Education Technology Conference, a couple of years ago, and I put the sewing machine in the middle of our makerspace booth. And people walking by would look at the drones and the dash and dots and the 3D printers, and they'd stop and look at the sewing machine and be like, I don't understand. Why is there a sewing machine in the middle of everything else? And then I talk to them about project-based learning, because I'm really big about whether, in something that parents deal with the same as educators do, they deal with budget, they deal with issues, and they also deal with comfort levels. What is a comfort level that they feel is good for bringing in some of those things? And so I like to talk beyond the tool and talk project-based learning as well. So, a sewing machine, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what are some things that you can take it beyond the tool on the next slide. But if you think of something like board games that we started with years ago, before something like Osmo was created right above it, one of the things that they both have in common is procedural writing. So coding correlates to procedural writing. And so taking it a little bit beyond that tool is really what takes those products or those learning tools to actually be tools and not just toys as well, right? We want to take a deeper dive into learning than just let's do something one time, and a project isn't necessarily project-based learning as well. So talking about going beyond making, and one of the things that I was in that booth and having the conversations with people about was, you know, if you take a sewing machine, you can take a look at forces in motion, right? The speed and force needed to go through various textiles. The history of textiles can come into play. Where were they originated and how were they made? And how do they apply to different things now? I don't really think that the astronauts going into space, that their spacesuits are going to be made out of hemp material that was, you know, back in the 1800s. So there's a big part of our everyday living that has to do with the science behind these things. Geometry and pattern. The pattern on fabrics are based in mathematics. So you could do a whole thing on the patterns of that. Then the patterns on gardening too, right? And tessellations. And then also literacy, bringing in and building those skills through reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And these are all things that students are expected to do throughout their academic career and beyond. And so these are ways that we can really engage science and engineering in with those skills. And if we don't even have a tool at home, like a sewing machine or some kind of coding device or an Osmo, you know, we can talk about basic cooking. And, you know, I did some cookies here. And so sensory science is a discipline within perceptions and responses to foods. Sensory science is a big part of things that we use that are brought to the marketplace. Hinkle, that was based in Phoenix for a long time, they actually had people, and I love to tell kids this, they had people that were actually paid to smell armpits. And so I thought, wow, that would be kind of an amazing job to have. I don't know if I'd necessarily want it, but, you know, and then you also look in cooking and baking at the chemistry, emulsification and egg proteins, you know, getting rid of bacteria through the heat, and then also the leavening agents, and then data collecting. You know, kids can go and they can collect data about likes and dislikes, what, you know, maybe someone doesn't like peanut butter, maybe they're allergic to peanut butter. And this is going to take us into the next part when I talk about entrepreneurship. And then measurement. You know,
got 1 minute left now too.
Okay. And then, you know, literacy and comprehending procedural writing. Okay. So taking this all in from science innovation into entrepreneurship. And it's amazing, the page up at the very top, all I did was say McDonald's, Starbucks, Walmart, and Applebee's. And those kids knew what that environmental print was. And the guys to the right, they were creating and collecting data on a food product that they were going to make from my Seed to Shelf summer program that I had done. The girls down at the bottom are planning on their engineering and design to get a product that they had kind of come up with an idea for to the marketplace. This group in the middle, they did the science and business of a lemonade stand, and then they donated their money to a charity for the little girl that was in the middle that was fighting cancer. And so that's social entrepreneurship that also comes into play. And then failure is the foundation of innovation. And I think it's things like Maker that allow kids to fail. And they need to do that. They need to learn to fail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. That was a great overview of just a lot of the amazing work that you're up to. To me, actually, the people that we have, I think almost like everybody who's part of the conversation could really have an awesome 5-minute presentation on their experience with this topic. And I think that's going to be an exciting part about the breakouts as well. But our final presenter, I want to introduce Danelle Hogan. She's the director of this amazing project in Pima County and has done some amazing work with hands-on experiences, training teachers, and she'll be able to tell a lot more about what she's up to. Take it, Danelle.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. Again, I'm with this amazing project at the Pima County School Superintendent's Office. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about Mic Drop Math and Sciencing and Engineering, new collection that we have. So these are the binary number Mic Drop Math cards. And if you think of the number for the day that you were born, and then in the chat, if you'll just say yes or no, is the number for just the day, not the month or the year, just the day you were born on those cards in order, starting top left and going from left to right as we normally would. Just give me 5 yeses or nos, and I can tell you what your birthday is. But you have to give me 5 yeses or nos, so all in a row. So for instance, my birthday is the 8th of April. So I would say no, 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 yes, no. So Kelly Green, I can see that your birthday must be the 20th. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent, fantastic. And oh, looks like Marnie has the same birthday, the 20th. And then Melissa Wendell, it looks like your birthday is the 7th. Can you tell me if I'm right?
Looks like she said yes.
Yes, you are.
Excellent, fantastic. So these cards are really fantastic and interesting. And if you ask most people about binary numbers, they will simply just tell you that they're zeros and ones, right? But we think we have a series of lessons that can really help introduce students to binary numbers in a way that they'll fundamentally understand them. And if you talk to some people that go into computer science, they'll tell you that when they get to undergraduate school and oftentimes experience binary numbers in depth for the very first time, it can turn them away from computer science and other fields, STEM fields, simply because it's kind of a barrier for getting in. So these cards are super accessible, and also we have them up to different numbers and even accessible to young children. We have dots on the back of them so that if you were young and you couldn't add numbers together, which is one of the ways that I'm able to get your birthday, then you could just count the dots on the back of the cards that people say yes to and figure out what their birthday is, or whatever number they pick between 1 and 31. A part of this series also, this Mic Drop Math series, is a really cool lesson from CS Unplugged. And I should say that I have done every single one of these binary number lessons virtually with students and with adult friends, with other teachers like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, you have to see it. And so if you're, this one is actually talking about data error detection and correction. And you'll see I'm using like cardboard cutout of like some packaging from something I bought. It could be a cereal box or something like that. And I actually have extended this lesson so that in these cards, in rows A through E and columns 1 through 5, I have a message coded in that you could actually decode using the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So not only can I teach students a fundamental way that computers are processing data and checking for errors and correcting it by putting these parity bits around the data, but I can also teach them about how we're using those zeros and ones to actually encode real messages. And it goes up and down in terms of levels. So you could have just a 3x3 grid if you're working with younger students, or if you're working with older students, you can use the 7-bit ASCII codes, and you can even add punctuation. You could write a whole paragraph from a Shakespeare play if you wanted to using the ASCII code. And for those that are a smidge older like me, then you can also, the art extension to this is that you can use the ASCII characters to create some ASCII art, which used to be a thing when email was new, that you would create these pictures using characters and things like that, and then send them out to folks. So anyway, there's an art extension to that too that is also a throwback to the early years of email, which is great. The other collection that we have is our Sciencing and Engineering resource and video collection, and this is brand new in the wake of the pandemic. We saw a real need for teachers to have easy access to lessons that would utilize either materials that students had around their house already and or materials that are very cheap. And so this is a whole series of lessons that look at those kinds of things. So the Bernoulli principle lesson uses a strip of paper, a spoon, a couple of empty coffee mugs, and an aluminum can to teach about Bernoulli's principle. Ant wrangling is actually a video that I asked permission to use from a guy from Discovery Education, and it shows drawing pictures around ants and how they get stuck inside, drawing circles around them, and they get stuck inside the circle sometime, which is really strange. And then what we want students to do is notice and wonder, and we have all kinds of journals that are set up to help students record that noticing and wondering, including journals that are accessible for Google Classroom. So that's a whole growing collection.
You got about 30 seconds left.
Perfect. And so when you go to our website, stamazing.org, you can find those resources. We are also doing some webinars with the Arizona Department of Education. So you can check our website for the PD events that we have coming up. And next week we'll be doing a webinar with the National Academy of Sciences as well. So we love to share everything that we have. We're always looking to push stuff out there. And this will be a growing collection of resources that our STAMazing Teacher Leader Corps will be adding to. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you again.
I'm going to go ahead and break out into breakout rooms. And Casey, if you want to show the next slide just really quick for me, please. We will be going into breakout rooms. Each room has a moderator. They will be, they know who they are. So they all have a Google sheet, as do you, that Jake just popped into the chat. That's what we'll be using to facilitate the breakout rooms. There are 3 questions and there's a 4th optional question in there. So each moderator will be walking you through that. You will get an invite on your screen to go into your room, so you don't need to do anything. I've already pre-assigned you. So in just a minute, I'm going to break you into your breakout rooms for about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll call in a couple of moderators to share out their thoughts about what the group discussed. So moderators, just a reminder to make sure to record your information in your tab in that spreadsheet. Because then I will take all that information, our team will aggregate it and put it into a document to send out to the group on Monday with all of the resources and ideas that were shared there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms, and I hope you all enjoy, and we'll see you back in about 20 minutes.
Things. I think we could probably do this for a full day, right? And maybe eventually we build to that. I loved my group. You know, we talked about a lot of opportunities, but also it's a challenging time, and just acknowledge there's no quick solution to anything, and that it's going to take time. There was some really good discussion about what do we do about really still creating that real connection on video that might have been in hands-on interactive activities. So great notes. I appreciate the group and everybody. In order to continue the format, we greatly appreciate if each of you would take a minute to fill out the poll that should be coming on your screen now. This will help us really get a sense of how it went for you. Your feedback provided in the Google Doc will also help drive enhancements for future shows that could be used to inform guides. I know in my group there were some great ideas that came up that I think alone would create 2 or 3 different topics. Again, all of you for your willingness to come and try this out. We hope you'll join us for the next conversation. That thoughts in the meantime, again, put it in the chat. Feel free to email us. But thank you very much. And we can stay on for a few extra minutes if you had other questions or wanted to talk about anything else. But we did want to be sensitive to the time and really keep it to 1 hour.
Thanks for joining us. Bye. Be STEM-tastic.
Bye. Thanks, Jeremy, for inviting me.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks for bringing everybody together.
Bye, everyone.